picking up with Act 4, looks like Scene 4, on 1670.
Scene what?
Act 4, Scene 4. Hamlet is on his way to the coast with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and we've got the stage directions. A plane in Denmark, enter Fortinbras, or Fortinbras if you want to pronounce it that way, with his army over the stage. And so they enter, they go across, and they leave, everyone but the captain. And Hamlet, along with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, go up to the captain, and Hamlet asks him some questions. Who are these powers? What are they doing? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Captain says they're of Norway. So Hamlet immediately knows who that is. That's Fortinbras. Right? So he and the captain talk, and the captain tells him what they're getting ready to do. We go to gain, line 17 or so, we go to gain a little patch of ground that hath in it no profit but the name. So they're going to go fight for a little piece of earth that he says is totally worthless. Other than that, it has the name of something. The name is insignificant, but it's like, part of Poland, part of the United States, part of Canada kind of thing. Okay? He says, to pay 5 ducats, 5, I would not farm it. Nor will it yield to Norway or the Pole a ranker rate should it be Hamlet. Well, then the Pole won't defend it. I mean, if it's worthless, the Pole, he said, it's already garrisoned. They've already supplied troops to defend that little plot. Hamlet, 2,000 souls and 20,000 ducats will not debate the question of the straw. What's he mean? 2,000 souls, 2,000 men, and 20,000, let's use our terminology, dollars, he says, will not resolve, will not solve the question of this straw. Look at your gloss for straw. Settle this trifling matter. Why? What's at stake? Well, Hamlet says that inward breaks, this is the imposture of much wealth and peace, that inward breaks and shows no cause without why the man dies. So the captain leaves, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern leave with him. They're not leaving Hamlet because they still have a job to do, right? They're taking him to England. And Hamlet gets an opportunity for another soliloquy. And the main thrust of the soliloquy, again, as we've had just about every time since the ghost spoke to Hamlet, is, why haven't I acted yet? So, Hamlet, how all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. What is a man if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? What are we? Hamlet's asking. If our only purpose is to eat and sleep, that's it. A beast. No more. Because that's what animals do, right? If you have pets, a dog, cat, whatever, that's all they do all day long. Eat, sleep, that's it. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse, he's talking about God, with such large discourse, that is, the ability to reason, think, and speak. Looking before and after. Before, where did I come from? After, where am I going? Gave us not that capability and godlike reason. To do what? To fuss in us unused. To fuss. Like to grow moldy. To grow rusty. No. Hamlet's saying we're supposed to use our reason. We're supposed to apply it to our lives. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered hath but 1 part wisdom and ever 3 parts coward, I don't know. So, he says, examples gross as earth exhort me. exhort, they encourage me to do what? Revenge. What does it mean, examples gross as earth? No matter where you go, unless you're out in the middle of the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Gulf, the Indian Ocean, what are you surrounded by? Earth, the world. And even in the middle of the oceans, you're still on earth. He says, everything showed me what I should do. Look at this army, for example. Of such mass in charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, that is Fortinbras, new prince/king of Norway, whose spirit with divine ambition, puffed, makes mouths at the invisible event. With divine ambition puffed, he wants to be more than what he is. Exposing what is mortal and ensure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. He is willing to waste what for an eggshell? All his men's lives. Okay? What's the eggshell? It's not literally the land. The land is symbolic of something for Fortinbras. Rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument. What did Polonius tell Laertes before he left for France? About getting into a quarrel or argument. He said, don't. But if you're in, bear it so that the opposer knows not to do it again. So, rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument. To be considered great is to not get involved in a fight without really good reasons to do so. Okay? You can't just fly off at the handle if you are great, like a king or a prince. But greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at stake. Notice what Hamlet is saying about honor. Spelled English, spelled American, thanks to Noah Webster. What's he saying about honor? Honor is worth what? Dying for. One's personal honor. We don't use that word very much today. It's old-fashioned. What word do we use if we use anything to describe what this means?
Respect.
Respect of what? Or by whom? Respect of others for you. Why? How do you earn that respect? Notice, it must be earned. It's not automatic. Okay? The guy who Trump nominated for the Supreme Court, he said he wants to testify today to defend what? He didn't use this word. Shut up, Siri.
The high temperature will be 77 degrees today.
I don't give a frick. Integrity. To defend his integrity. Okay? What does he mean by that? That the character he has built up over the last however many years is real. It's true. Okay? The respect that people have for him is based upon real actions. It's not a lie. Hamlet says here, if you are going to be great, you shouldn't get involved in a fight without a great argument, without a great reason to do so. But greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at stake. So if somebody maligns your honor, it doesn't take much to get involved in an argument, in a fight. If someone says something about you that is not true, Hamlet is saying, and they say something about your honor, about your behavior, that you and others know to be false, what should you do? Oh yeah, you send them a serious can of you know what. Okay? You get into that fight and you follow Polonius's advice, you bear it so that they know not to ever do that again. Okay? So, Hamlet asked, how stand I then? He's looking at Fortinbras, he's looking at these soldiers, they're getting ready to go fight over a crappy piece of land that's not even worth farming. And they're doing it for what? Honor. Honor. Hamlet, how stand I then, that have a father killed and mother stained? So if that involves honor, where is it? How about family name? His heritage. Okay? He's saying, that's been, let's go back to that first soliloquy, sullied. It's been dirtied. Up to him to clean it up. That if a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood. That is, these two things excite, they aggravate my reason, they make me angry. Well, how would you feel if your father was murdered? Murdered. Not, negligent homicide by your uncle. You'd probably be pretty angry. Within the context of a revenge tragedy, that is what? That is cause for revenge. Okay? Excitements of my reason and then of my blood, passion. The incitement of blood is irrational. Goes against reason. Because reason says, well, maybe you should calm down. Maybe you should figure out, was the ghost telling the truth? Well, has he done that? Has he gotten his proof? To some extent, hasn't he? Where? The play within the play. What did Claudius see? He saw the brother of Gonzago pour poison in his ear while Gonzago was sleeping in his orchard. And Claudius jumps up and rushes out. Okay? Why? Because the play held the mirror up to nature. And Claudius couldn't stand it. So, and I let all sleep. That is, he lets the excitements to reason and blood sleep. We're in Act 4. He discovered in Act 1 that Claudius killed his father. He hasn't done anything yet. While to my shame, I see the imminent death of 20,000 men. For what? For a fantasy and trick of fame. Trick, toy, trifle. Go to their graves like beds. That is, their graves are like beds. For what? For a plot. A piece of dirt, whereon the numbers cannot try the cause. Try there means prove, justify the cause. I remember, because I'm old enough to remember, watching the news during the Vietnam War. Late 60s, early 70s. And, hearing daily, every night, the body count. And what the body count was for. We would hear about, such and such company took such and such a piece of land. And the next day, they lost it. Or the next day, they left. So they take a hill and lose 40 men, and the very next day, they leave that hill. Not because it's under attack, but because the generals higher up determined it's no longer worth occupying. 40 guys dead. For what reason? Nothing. Okay? Hamlet is saying, the number of dead doesn't justify the cause of their death. I wonder what he would say about Afghanistan today. I'll be the first one to say we've been there way too long because we have nothing to do with terrorism there. We are trying to back up a regime that does not want what we are trying to do. Just cut them loose, let them kill each other. Whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. The cause, the bit of land, he says it isn't big enough to bury the 20,000. Now, how much land do you need to bury 20,000 people? Not a lot. If you use mass graves, you could do that less than an acre. Is he talking, let's be generous, 5 acres, 10 acres, 1 square mile? Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. Okay? Scene 5. We have the queen, Horatio. Ophelia comes in. What's Ophelia doing? She's singing. She's singing beautiful songs about flowers. Why?
Crazy.
She's gone ape, you know what, crazy. Yeah. She's lost her mind. Okay? So, the king says, Ophelia says, just before she leaves, line 67, page 1673, I hope all will be well. Shakespeare has a play, All's Well That Ends Well. It's a comedy. It's not this one, obviously. We must be patient. Meaning, we have to endure. We have to live through this. We have to overcome. It also means if you have to endure something, if you have to live through something, if you have to overcome something, then that something that you endure, live through, and overcome is causing what to you? What's another meaning for a patient? Like someone who goes to a hospital. They go to the hospital because they're well, right? No, they're suffering. We must be suffering, she says. Well, that takes us back to Hamlet's first soliloquy, and then his big speech in Act 3, Scene 1, to be or not to be. Because that's all about suffering the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, etc. But I cannot choose but weep to think they would lay him in the cold ground. Who's the M? Dad. My brother shall know of it, and so I thank you for your good counsel. Come, my coach, good night, ladies. And she goes off. So, my brother's going to hear about it. Okay? King, watch her. Give her good watch. This is poison deep grief. It springs from her father's death. Okay? Poor Ophelia, 81, divided from herself and her fair judgment, without the which we are pictures or mere beasts. Divided from herself and her judgment, her reason. Without reason, Claudius is saying, we are mere beasts. Well, that's what Hamlet just said. And then Hamlet's going to play upon that idea in Act 5 when Laertes comes in. Because Hamlet's going to suggest, I didn't kill Polonius. Okay? So the messenger comes in, 1674, and says, Laertes is back, and the rabble are doing what? Laertes, Laertes, we want Laertes for king. What's the problem with that? Yeah, Claudius is king, first of all. Louder, T. He's not in the royal line. Okay? He's not related to the king in any way. So Laertes comes in. And notice his language. He's fit to be tied. He's really angry. What does he want? Why is he back? Hamlet killed my father. I'm going to kill Hamlet. Don't try to stop me. Why haven't you already done something? I mean, he's starting to accuse the king. And he's like, whoa, 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 back down, buddy. Where is my father? Dead. Queen, but not by him. Claudius didn't do it. Don't. Okay? How came he dead? I'll not be juggled with. To hell allegiance vows. Kind of like when Hamlet said, I'll remove all saws, all memories, everything I've learned from my brain, kill Claudius. Okay? Conscience grace to the profoundest pit. Grace, that's kind of implying religious belief, like Christian religion. Conscience, Jesus, go to hell, because I'm going to kill Hamlet no matter what. So, they keep talking, and Ophelia comes in. Laertes sees Ophelia, crazy as a Mad Hatter. She leaves, and he's like, oh, this is even worse. Line 194. Do you see this, oh God? He's kind of going like, okay, God, why haven't you done something? King, Laertes, I must commune, he says, with your grief. That is, I must be part of your grief. I will work with you in your grief. He's saying, let's go aside, you and I will work this out. All right? So, scene 6. We get a sailor and gentleman and Horatio has a letter from Hamlet. Hamlet tells Horatio, make sure this other letter gets to the king. Okay? Very short scene. Scene 7. Laertes and the king come in. So, Laertes says, how come you haven't done anything? King says, 2 reasons. Which maybe you'll understand, but maybe not. The queen's mother lives almost by his looks. If I kill Hamlet, she's going to be upset. Okay? And for myself, she's so conjunctive to my life and soul. So joined to me. I can't live without her. Why else? The other motive why to a public count I might not go is the great love that General Gender bear him. That is, everybody in the kingdom loves Hamlet. I kill Hamlet, what are they going to say? There will be open rebellion. Okay? Laertes. Oh, okay, I get it. Line 25. So have I, a noble father, lost a sister driven into desperate arms, whose worth of praises may go back against the challenger, but my revenge will come. He goes, no, don't worry about that. Don't lose any sleep over that. We'll get your revenge, don't worry. The messenger comes in with letters from Hamlet. Okay? The king tells Laertes, you're going to hear what these letters say. He tells the messenger, get lost. High and mighty, Hamlet writes, you shall know I am set naked on your kingdom. Tomorrow shall I beg leave to see your kingly eyes, when I shall, first asking your pardon thereunto, recount the occasion of my sudden and more strange return. Yeah, pretty sudden and strange, because the king's expecting what? Yeah, for Hamlet to go off to England and get his head cut off. And now he's returned. Naked on your kingdom. Your gloss tells you for naked what? Unprovided with retinue. Okay, that's one meaning. Another meaning could be naked. He doesn't have any clothes on, but it's not that. But it does mean kind of confronting. I am opposing. Naked can have that meaning. Standing opposed to. Okay? Laertes. Is it his? King. Yep, that's Hamlet's handwriting, all right. So, King says, he says alone. Can you devise me? Beats me. But Laertes, but I'm glad, because now I get to kill him. So, what device do they come up with to kill Hamlet? What does the king say he's heard about Laertes? That he's pretty good with a sword. Been practicing his fencing. Okay? And what else? He says, Hamlet on the other side, not so much. Remember, even Hamlet has said he has lost his daily exercise. Okay? So, the king says, we will work it so that you two fight. And Laertes says, okay, I'll do it. And I'll anoint my sword. I'm going to put poison on it. So that once I strike him, he'll be dead within minutes. King, yeah, and to make double sure, I'll put poison in a goblet. And when Hamlet is tired because he's fat and out of weight, I'll give him a sip. So he'll have that poison plus the other poison. He's going to be double dead, you know. The queen comes in. What do we see starting to happen beginning Act 3 slowly with Polonius' death? And then that snowball keeps rolling. Nope, there's another body attached to it because in comes the queen saying, Ophelia's dead. Okay? How was she dead? Okay, so did she drown herself or did she drown? She did drown. Whether or not it was suicide is unclear. Okay? The queen says she went out on a willow branch over a brook and was trying to reach flowers growing in the brook, like lilies, water lilies. And she fell down, and she had on her big, heavy Elizabethan-style dress, and there's a famous pre-Raphaelite painting of this from the early 19th century. And she just kind of lay there, and the dress spread out, and then it sucked up all the water, and she went down and drowned. So Laertes is like, okay, now I've got two people to, because that's Hamlet's fault. Not, right? Hamlet had nothing to do with that, okay? So, Act 5. Why do we get a gravedigger scene? Okay, one, we need, because Ophelia needs a grave to be buried in, okay? Why else? What kind of scene is this? What is this meant to provide for us? Yeah, it's comic relief. Because Act 4's kind of built this suspense and tension, right? We need a little bit of release from that. So we get two gravediggers. In the first clown, notice, clown. Is she to be buried in Christian burial when she willfully seeks her own salvation? That is, when she killed herself. I tell thee she is, therefore make her grave straight. The coroner has sat on her and finds a Christian burial. The crowner, coroner. In Britain, custom is for every death you have a coroner's inquest to determine what the cause of death was. Okay? So they had to have a coroner's inquest to determine, was this a Christian death, that is accidental drowning, or was it an unchristian death, suicidal drowning? Because which of the two it was determines where she gets buried. If it was a Christian death, she gets buried in the churchyard, which is hallowed sacred ground. Kind of like you get married, you get buried in there, and it's like the, Monopoly go straight to go card. I mean, straight to heaven. You don't get buried in there. You have the unchristian burial. You're buried outside the hallowed ground. You might be one of those spirits that gets up at midnight and walks the land. Okay? So, the first clown. How can that be? How can she get Christian burial unless she drowned herself in her own defense? That is self-defense. 'Tis so. Okay? So they keep talking. And let's see. We're going to skip a bit. Hamlet and Horatio come in. Yeah, I'm going to skip a lot. Hamlet and Horatio come in. And the second clown leaves, and the first clown sings a song while he digs. Hamlet, line 57. Has this fellow no feeling of his business? That is sings at grave making? That is, man, this guy's callous. How cold can you be to sit there and sing while you're burying somebody? Horatio, custom hath made it in him a property of easiness. He's done it for so long, it no longer means anything to him to bury somebody. Hamlet, 'tis even so. So the clown keeps singing, and Hamlet sees a skull thrown up and land on the ground. So obviously, the clown / gravedigger is digging what? Digging a pre-used grave. Why? Because Denmark's a small country. Okay? They had to reuse graves. Happens all over the place, by the way. Hamlet, that skull had a tongue in it and could sing once. How the knave jowls it to the ground, as if it were Cain's jawbone that did the first murder. He said, might have been a pate of a politician, which is ass now or reaches, and one that would circumvent God, might it not? That is, the politician might try to circumvent God, go around God, bend the rules, in other words. It might. Well, could have been a courtier. Yep, could have been. So they keep talking, throws up another skull. So there's been at least 2 people buried in this grave. I think there was one earlier, so that's like 3. Hamlet. Well, that could have been the skull of a lawyer. And he talks about what lawyers do. Now, Shakespeare had some experience with lawyers. He was sued, okay, in a property deal. He was called as a witness in a couple of instances. One of his most famous lines from one of the Henry VI plays is, first kill all the lawyers. My son, who's in law school, doesn't really care for that. So, they keep talking. And Hamlet addresses the clown. And Hamlet says, who's he digging the grave for? He says, whose grave this, sirrah? Mine, sir. Hamlet, I think it be thine indeed, for thou liest there. Why? Because he's in the grave digging the guy. So they talk a bit about that. And the grave digger says, it's not for a man. Hamlet, oh, woman then? No, neither. Well, who's to be buried in it? One that was a woman. Notice the grave digger, who's supposed to be a fool, is very fastidious with meanings of words. Hamlet says, who is it for? A man? Nope. Well, a woman? Nope. Why? Because she's no longer a woman, because now she's a piece of meat. Now she's the carcass that, the sun can breed maggots in. One that was a woman, but rest her soul, she's dead. How absolute the knave is. In other words, this guy would be a good lawyer. He knows how to, focus down on the individual meanings of words. Okay? So, they keep talking, and Hamlet asks, how long have you been gravedigger? I came to it that day that our last king, Hamlet, overcame Fortinbras. That is, the former king of Norway. How long is that since? Now, Hamlet knows when that is. Cannot you tell that? Every fool can tell that. It was the very day that young Hamlet was born. We're starting to get an idea of how old Hamlet is. Now, go back to the beginning of the play for just a moment. They're on watch at the castle of Elsinore for what purpose? Because young Norway is stirring up problems. Why? He wants to avenge his father's death. When did his father die? When, according to this gravedigger, old Hamlet Sr. killed old Norway. It kind of sounds at the beginning of the play like that was last week or a couple of months ago. No. So he says it was the very day that young Hamlet was born. He that is mad sitting into England. Hamlet. Why? Why is he sitting in England? No, because he's mad and he shall recover his wits though. Or if he doesn't, doesn't matter. Well, why not? Because they're all mad in England. That's a line to please the groundlings. Ha ha, we're all crazy, So, he asks again. And the guy says, why, here in Denmark, line 138, I have been sexton here, man and boy, 30 years. Hamlet is 30 years old. And yet he's frequently referred to as young Hamlet this, young Hamlet that. Polonius says, young Hamlet is not able to carve his own future, blah, blah, blah. Talking about him like he's a teenager. Okay? Keep in mind, he stays in Elsinore because his mother wants him to. Where does Hamlet want to go back to at the beginning of the play? Wittenberg, where he is a student at 30. We're not talking doctoral student. We're not necessarily talking master's student. We're kind of talking, it appears, perpetual student. Does Hamlet not want to get on with life? What's the problem with his getting on with life?
All this stuff happened.
Okay. What position does he have? He's prince. What can he do? Pretty much nothing until his father dies. After all, for the last, pick a number, however many years you want. What does Prince Charles do? He's got foundations he supports. He supports charities. He flies around and gives speeches about idiotic things that he knows nothing about. He talks about some things that he does know about. He does know an awful lot about architecture. And he talks about how the architecture of London is over the last 30 years. And go to London today, look at the beautiful 18th century architecture and look at the god-awful stuff they're putting up today. Looks like a blind man with Legos. A lot of it. Okay? He does all that because he doesn't have anything else to do. Poor guy's never going to be king. Unless he offs his mother, because she's like the Energizer Bunny. She just keeps on going. Okay? So, Hamlet's 30 years old. How old's Ophelia? I don't think she's 30. I think she's probably in her teens. Laertes isn't 30. Pretty clear. It's not exact, but so he throws another skull up. And the clown says, here's one that's lain in the earth for 23 years, since Hamlet was 7 years old. Hamlet, whose is this? Well, it was Yorick's skull, the king's jester. This, that. Hamlet takes it, holds it. And notice, he doesn't say what everybody says he says. Alas, poor Yorick, Horatio, I knew him well. He says, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. And he gives us this beautiful little speech. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times. What was Yorick for Hamlet Sr.? Court jester. Robin Williams. Okay? And Hamlet says, and he used to carry me on his back all the time. Here's somebody Hamlet had a friendship with, even though he was much older than Hamlet. Okay? And he holds his face, and there's nothing there but bone. And says, come on, where are your jokes? Where's your smart alecky comments? He says, Horatio, tell me one thing, whatever. You think Alexander looked like this in the earth? That is, Alexander the Great, he who conquered the known world in his age. Do you think he looked like this? Yep. Smell like this? Yep. To what base uses we may return, Horatio? Base. Well, the earth, according to Genesis, is our base. From dust thou art, and to dust shalt thou return. But he's not talking about just that. He says, and that will be turn into a use. What kind of use? We may not imagine trace the noble dust of Alexander till it find it stopping a bunghole. A bunghole is the hole in a cask. Okay? We say that you put what in the hole? A cork. Well, why not Alexander be the stuff the cork be made of, rather than actual cork. Horatio, torture to consider too curiously. In other words, that's a bit above my pay grade. Hamlet, no, it's not. Think of what Hamlet told Claudius when they were talking about where Polonius was. Your good emperor, your beggar, they're both what? Food for worms. You take that worm, you put it on the hook, you bait the fish, you eat the fish. You just ate the emperor because the worm ate the emperor. Thus may an emperor go a progress through the guts of a beggar. Okay? So, Hamlet. No, it's not to consider it too curiously, but to follow him thither with modesty enough and likelihood to lead it, as thus. Alexander died. Alexander was buried. Alexander returneth into dust, the dust of earth. Of earth we make loam, and why of that loam? Why not stop a beer barrel? What does Hamlet seem to be suggesting about the purpose for human life?
Really means nothing.
Meaningless. Is this why I exist? To be a beer bunghole stopper? Okay? So all these other come in now. King, queen, Laertes, and such. Hamlet, look, there's Laertes. Noble youth. And Hamlet sees a funeral start. And Laertes starts screaming at the top of his lungs. Hamlet, line 210, says, what? The fair Ophelia? He hasn't heard that Ophelia has died. And Laertes, excuse me, Hamlet leaps into Ophelia's grave. They put Ophelia in the grave. Hamlet jumps down and says, what is he whose grief bears such an emphasis, whose phrase of sorrow conjures the wandering stars and makes them stand like wonder-wounded heroes? This is I, Hamlet the Dane, who jumps in. Laertes, the devil take thy soul. Okay? Because Laertes has jumped into the grave first. Hamlet's trying to outdo Laertes' love for Ophelia. Obviously, one hopes, different kind of love. Laertes, the devil take thy soul. Hamlet, thou prayest not well. That's not a nice thing to say. I prithee, take thy fingers from off my throat. For though I am not splenitive and rash, yet I have in me something dangerous. It's kind of like, you don't want to anger me. Okay? So, they get separated. And Hamlet asks Laertes, 257, hear you, sir, what is the reason that you use me thus? I loved you ever. We've never had problems. We've always gotten along. But it is no matter. King, Horatio, wait upon him. Take him away, calm him down. All right? So, scene 2. We have Hamlet and Horatio talking. Hamlet tells what Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were supposed to do in taking him to England. In other words, he tells Horatio, the king plotted against my life. Horatio, 62 or so. Wow, what a king is this? Okay, so Hamlet. So now think about this. He killed my father, he whored my mother, he popped in between the election and my hopes. Germanic fashion wasn't only that the eldest son of the father becomes king, but the father would have a group of advisors called electors. And usually they rubber stamped that. But he's saying, it was my election. Okay? So what's Hamlet getting to? I got to take care of Claudius. To let this canker of our nature come in further evil. Horatio, it's going to be known from England what you've done. Okay? We'll stop there, and we will pick up with and finish on Wednesday. Probably that same scene, page 1692. Okay, like I said, quiz over 3 through 5.